What a treat to speak to Millefiore Clarkes. Through her production company, 1000 Flowers, she's made an impressive number of films, from drama to documentary to music videos. We talked about her very early drive to be an actor, ambition, competition, and the current climate emergency.
Art, I want you. Art, you make it pretty hard not to. And my heart is trying hard here to follow you, but I can't always tell if I ought to.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
What a beautiful day. Nice drive.
Oh, yeah, just stunning. All of a sudden, it's summer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm actually not ready for it. I like the spring temperatures. I think it's going to get up too hot today for me.
It is. It's a little unnerving if you think about it in context, but if you take it in isolation as just simply a beautiful day, then it is that.
Indeed. Yeah. I'd like to start by talking about how you got into filmmaking. I did read a little bit about how you made Stalking Love, and I'm just curious about kind of what, I know that wasn't your first film, but how you kind of worked up to that and
Sure.
where you started.
Way back now. The first film I ever made, I got a $100 grant from the King's Film Society. I went to King's College in Halifax. And yeah, with that $100, I got the confidence and the encouragement to try to make a film. So I had a Super 8 camera at the time, and I just sort of wandered around the north end of Halifax where I used to live, collecting impressions, sort of slices of life, almost like street portraiture, except on film. And then sort of fell in love with the process of splicing it together. You know, it was real film, so you had to actually cut it and tape it, and sitting in a dark closet for hours on end. Fell in love with that process, and that was kind of it for me. That was when I discovered the thing that I love to do.
On the page that I was looking at, it also said that you said that it was the meditative act of editing that sealed the deal for your passion as a filmmaker. Do you still feel the same way about editing?
I absolutely do. Yes. The whole process for me is about editing. It's to get to the editing. I'm glad that I don't edit all the time, because editing is often solitary work and in a dark room, and it could be a beautiful day like this outside and you sort of miss it. So I love going out and filming, especially because I do a lot of documentary work. So I get to enter into other people's worlds or different, places and scenes and experiences and communities that I wouldn't otherwise have the privilege of being a part of or enter into. I get to gather those impressions and that footage. But the real joy of the craft for me comes in the edit suite when I start to weave those all together and it starts to make some kind of sense.
Mm-hmm. What is it about documentary work that you love so much?
Probably, really just kind of what I mentioned. I love the excuse to wander in and out of people's worlds, try to step gently, of course. It's a big responsibility to, portray someone else's reality through your own lens. So I tend to lean towards films that are like quite subjective, where myself as the director and as the camera person, I'm sort of very present in the film. I'm not pretending any kind of objective truth or decisive sort of stance on what I'm filming. It's really more about demonstrating what I'm witnessing and trying to convey that. So the films tend to be a bit impressionistic, a bit subjective, contemplative, and just really trying to gather the impressions of the world as they come to me, and then weave them into a film and offer it to others to see if they resonate on some level. So documentary filmmaking for me isn't necessarily so much about exposing truth exactly, or really telling like an important story that needs to be told. Like, I value those films completely, and I'm very glad that there's all different approaches to documentary. It's one of the most fascinating, versatile art forms. I don't even think you can exactly define it, really. Sort of about truth, but not at all as well, too. So And the form of it is just shifting and changing so much these days. So many people are playing with sort of the liminal space between scripted and non-scripted, or really, playing with narrative and form. There's so many different kinds of documentaries, but for mine tend to be more introspective in a way. There's an introspective tone, even if the subject matter is someone else or someone else's story.
To me, your films and your photography have a lot of space and often something kind of ethereal and delicate about them. Are you drawn to capture the quiet intensities of life more than the big bangs?
Yes, definitely. It is that space where I feel hopefully the idea is that whoever's watching the film, the audience, can pour themselves into that space. So if you sort of make a little offering and sort of step back, then the hope is that the audience will sort of step forward and create some of their own meaning and make their own connections. And I feel like I don't even do that enough. The filmmakers that I admire the most really push that. Again, I'm glad not all films are like that. I'm glad some films are really action-oriented and there's a lot right in the center. But for what I'm interested in making, space is important, quiet, allowing people to sort of take the metaphors and make their own meaning, I guess.
Mm-hmm. I just gave Solastalgia another watch. I hadn't seen it since it came out in 2019, I think, right? And it, of course, explores the, psychological toll of climate change. Did you realize how much worse that was going to get in the following years after you released that film?
Yeah, it's strange. Like climate grief, our relationship to the planet, to nature, to our ecosystems, our broken relationship with ecology, and the spiritual underpinning of nature, our connection to the land, all that. Those are themes that I'm kind of singularly obsessed with these days because I feel like they're the most important themes to talk about, and yet somehow so strangely difficult to talk about. And sorry, to answer your question, a strange thing about, the escalating climate crisis is that we can have all the facts in front of us, and we do, but it's really hard to project what that's really going to feel like until it happens, which I think is why we're in such a continuous state of denial. So 2019 is a long time ago now, and things were a lot different. And that is a strange thing about trying to make work about the climate, because it changes so rapidly now at ever increasing rates. Like I made a film last summer sort of around the same themes, and I wonder if it's going to feel a little dated this summer when I show it to people, like, is this summer going to be that much more intense? So it's strange.
Yeah, although I think those themes are never, it's not going to go away, obviously. So people are going to identify with those.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like I was just at Hot Docs, the documentary film festival in Toronto, and at the industry conference, and trying to sell my wares, pitch my ideas to people that have money in hopes they want to give me some. And it's really alarming how, and yet also completely understandable because I do this too, but how closed people get immediately when you mention climate, like even to a bunch of what you would assume would be pretty progressive, like very aware, kind of arty, documentarian type people. You'd think they would be completely on board with trying to figure out different dynamic, compelling, emotive ways that we can express the reality of our times through the form we've chosen, and you'd think that they'd hop on board. But the moment you even say the word climate crisis, people's faces just, they shut down. There's this sort of quietude that happens. You can see them withdrawing internally. And even people telling me, well, that's being done, like, oh, move on. Like, what's next? We've already seen the climate grief movie or whatever. And I'm like, anyway, so I took note, try not to, try to take that as a lesson and try to figure out, okay, that's fair. Because honestly, I don't love the word climate change either. It's kind of deadening. It's overwhelming. It's too vast, and it's really hard. I think, people are just sort of shutting down emotionally as a kind of survival mechanism. So then my work, I guess, as an artist is how to convey these truths in ways that don't deaden people's spirits, that enliven them or activate them, or at least allow them to feel their feelings. Like, I don't have solutions. I don't have a 5-step program to a better world. I really don't know, but I just want to be present with people in this moment. And I don't want us all to sort of go around shut down denial because shit's too real, So I do feel like that's a big role of an artist right now, and a big responsibility that I feel to try to convey current reality when it comes to, ecological crises in a way that people can stay present with. I don't know if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been a bit of a theme on this podcast where I've been wondering if people think that it is the role of the artist in many different mediums to be talking about this, singing about this, making films about this. And is it should all be artists be doing this in some way? And I partly, I feel that all artists are doing it in some way, even if they're not being specific about, this song is about this or this film is about this, because art in itself just putting it out in the world helps.
Totally.
But yeah, I'm wondering if you're conscious of that while you're coming up with ideas or you're making films, are you thinking, do you have this drive that you are supposed to be talking about certain themes?
Yeah, that's tricky, and I haven't thought about it really enough, but I know I've certainly brought up the idea of responsibility to two particular artists in one conversation once that resonates with me. They were dead set against the idea of artists having responsibility at all, because they thought that confined, the artist's drive for expression, that shouldn't be contained within some sort of directive, and certainly in the wrong context that could be a terrible thing that could lead to propaganda or
true, yeah.
So that's a slippery slope. But on the other hand, I'm not afraid of the word responsibility. I think that we've in a highly individualistic culture usurped by capitalism, promoted by capitalism, we like to shy away from the idea of responsibility because that infringes on our personal freedom. But I think that is at our peril. I think we have a lot of responsibility to the community, to one another, to the land, of course. And I take that really seriously. If you have a voice, use it well and wisely. And that doesn't mean you can't provoke or you can't, touch upon other topics that aren't maybe so politically fraught. Of course, art should express all kinds of things. But yeah, I do take that responsibility seriously myself. And I just happen to be really motivated by environmental issues. I always have been since I was a kid. So that's just also a personal thing too.
Yeah, I think every artist has a certain level of that going on, but how it comes out in their work is different. I think is really interesting.
Totally. One thing I do, I have been thinking about, is envisioning, future visioning, especially when it comes to films. I don't know if this is so true with other forms of art, but so many films are just focused on the apocalypse. It's dystopian future fetishization. It's we seem to be just obsessed with this terrible vision of the future as the only possible outcome. And it's couched in this idea that it's just a movie, it's an interesting story, sure. But it's if that's all we're projecting, how are we going to get to any other different version? So I'd be interested to see alternate visions of the future that aren't apocalyptic, because we'll have to dream them before we get there.
Yeah. Yeah. True.
And there's like, I was just attended like an online seminar that was put on by CBC, actually, that was, I believe, called Seeds of Change. And that was basically the whole theme. It's like, how do we convey a different vision of the future through the very powerful medium of film and television? And to do it, you can do it in so many different forms. It doesn't have to be, and ideally not like heavy-handed sort of political activist stuff. It can be in drama, in romance, in comedy, in horror, even. Like, how do you sort of, reframe the future?
Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, I thought it was awesome too. I don't know how, but it was an interesting topic.
It just switches, from we're all heading towards catastrophe to how is the new world going to look for us?
Yeah. Like, I mean, it could be great.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. We all know it could be great.
Like, when you think, well, it's like it doesn't actually occur to me that often. I actually have to like force myself to think about it.
Right.
I tend to I guess I'm a bit of a cynic, but also hopeful. I don't know. But like, I tend towards the like catastrophic myself. So I have to push myself to be like, wait, let's try to like imagine something slightly different. And when I do, it occurs to me, it's a very fleeting, but I'm like, oh, it could be really great. Imagine that. Those are nice moments.
They are, yeah. I think I tend towards the other direction, actually. I tend to put too much faith in humanity sometimes. Like, I'm often let down by the people, with the power. But I'm always like, it's not going to be forever. They're not going to be around forever.
Oh,
there's a tide coming,
Yeah.
But I don't know where I get that from or where it comes from.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I watched too much Star Trek: The Next Generation growing up.
No, that's wonderful. I mean, like, we need that. And it is true. There's something being born in the midst of all the stuff that seems to be going wrong, is rather terrifying on many levels. There's something new and hopeful and beautiful being born, for sure.
Yeah, I think so. You mentioned you were out in the world pitching new projects, etc. Can you talk a little bit about the freedom and the challenges of being an independent filmmaker in today's world?
Right. Yes. Well, I am lucky that I sort of became a filmmaker on Prince Edward Island before there was a heck of a lot of us. There's certainly a lot more now than there were 20 years ago. But I guess I managed to establish, my name in this small area as a filmmaker. So I do get to sort of support myself through client-based work a lot. So people will approach me if it's an organization or, musician for music video. So I'm not sure that all, different filmmakers obviously go about it differently, but I don't support myself necessarily fully through, say, artist grants or, big funds from major film funds like Telefilm or CMF or what have you. So I've been able to, I guess, stay a little like nimble that way. But on the other hand, I guess it's kind of, when you do your art as your daily business as well too, sometimes it limits your time or your focus or your energy for, say, maybe the most artistic projects or sort of the biggest dreams. And that's something, as I'm starting to get, up in years and relatively speaking, I realize. But I'd like to make some bigger films. I'd like to make some features, and that's going to require finding some real funding from the big guys. So I've been delving into, and right now with the support of Jenna McMillan, who's like a kick-ass producer here on PEI, and she knows the business. She's been doing the real thing for a while now. So seeking some sort of more real funding for a larger project. That's the next big dream. But we shall see, because there's a lot of filmmakers, a lot of talented, ambitious, hardworking filmmakers. So it's and smaller and smaller pots of money to support that too, especially for like the the POV one-off feature documentaries. Broadcasters and streamers tend to want to go for the more reality TV or true crime or maybe biopic of a famous person. Like that tends to be where their
Right.
interest lie, because that's what the numbers are telling them. That's what the people are watching. So it's a bit of a feedback loop. But
Yeah. How has your work changed over the years? Do you approach it differently now?
Hmm. I probably, I'm sure my approach has changed over the years, but I feel like I've probably changed less than many who have spent this long doing what I do. Tend to have sort of figured out like one method and I've kind of stuck to it. Like, just for example, the only edit software I've ever used is Final Cut Pro. Most professional editors would balk at that statement. But yeah, like I'm a funny mix of maybe like, I use technology, but I am a Luddite at heart. So, I figure something out and I'll really stick to it. And sometimes the parameters or the limitations of like sticking with tools and not constantly expanding either, whether it's software or camera gear or even, I don't know, production approaches. Staying within certain limitations sometimes can be helpful, because you really have to, find out how to say the thing within the limitations. And sometimes that can save some time as well, too, because, you can spend a lot of time.
This method works.
Exactly.
I know how to do this.
Yeah. But on the other hand, also good to learn and change and grow. So, yeah.
Yeah, you're talking to someone who's used the same recording software for the last 20 years also.
Right on. There's a kinship there, or kindred spirits.
Yeah, exactly. What does artistic success look like for you in terms of personal fulfillment?
Ooh, that's a big one. How honest should I be with that question? Should I expose my real, ambitions?
You heard it here first.
Yeah. I was laughing the other day with my partner Dan, who it was like at a dinner and family there, and we were talking about what our dreams were as children, like what we wanted to be. And I did, like that used to be on the wall of my dad's farmhouse, I did a self-portrait like in grade 6 of me at a podium getting an award.
What was the award for?
Well, pretty sure at the time I wanted to be an actor. So it wasn't it might have been an Oscar, but it wasn't as a director. It was more as like, leading actor. But yeah, I guess I've been motivated by awards since before I even knew what the heck that was really all about, really, if I think about it. So success equals awards. No, I'm just kidding. But no, it's a constant reframing for me because I do struggle with ambitions and delusions of grandeur. And I'm often obviously disappointed, as most of us are, by the world not, completely seeing my brilliance. So I have every time, say going to hot docs and sort of, realizing how stiff the competition is and how many other deserving people there are making brilliant things, and you can kind of get lost in that. And so I do have to continually reground myself with inside the process, like what is it? Why do I make films? Definitely not for the awards. It's for the fact that I'm never as happy as I am when I'm in the editing suite, in the flow of creating a piece that I'm just in love with, or I'm completely fulfilled if I'm, in the middle of a film shoot in this beautiful situation, meeting a new person that has an amazing story. So like, it's definitely the process and the ability, like if I'm making enough money that I can do this thing that I love, that's got to be success for sure.
Yeah. You talked about competition there a little bit. Do you think needing to be competitive with your work in order to get it to the right people or, get it seen is generally a good thing, or is it not a good thing?
Yeah, I don't know. For me, it's not. Like, I think, like, I don't like losing, and therefore I'm not a competitive person, if that makes sense. Like, I get, if I'm playing, a round of checkers with someone, and if I start losing more than two, like, I get quite upset, like, visibly, like, I cannot continue. So I don't like, I'm an only child. I don't have a lot of like early sort of formative lessons about, healthy competition. I wasn't in a lot of sports. So yeah, for me, competition is not motivating, whereas for some people it completely is. And I assume if competition was motivating, I might be in Los Angeles trying to make films.
Right.
Part of why I like to make art in PEI is because I can sort of forget the rest of the world here and hear my own voice a little clearer. And that works for me, for how I work. On the other hand, it's also incredibly inspirational to see other works, especially other works that are sort of comparative, like there's a few independent Canadian filmmakers, documentary filmmakers that are, like my filmmaking idols, not just because I love what they do, but they do it in the way that I want to do it, like what they're doing is so close to how, whether or not I succeed, but how I would love to do my work. So there is a comparative, not exactly competitive, but they definitely set a benchmark, and so yeah, I don't know, it's a mixed bag, but like, I wouldn't say competition is, I don't know, the foundation of art making. Like I'd say it's a more private thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. It's similar in the music world, obviously, where there's a lot of, there's only so much funding to go around, and you have to. The other thing that I was thinking of while you were talking was, working within an industry and needing to jump through certain hoops and that sort of thing. That sort of thing is one of the reasons why I stopped pursuing music as a career, because I couldn't handle having to describe the art that I make, and explain to people why it's important, because I didn't know if it was important to other people, and I didn't really care all that much. I just wanted to keep doing it. How do you do that? I know you've been at it for a while, but how do you keep going to those meetings with all those people, or those events? And
yeah, I mean, honestly, I feel very similar to you, and I've sort of skirted around on the outskirts of that most of my career. Like I do once, I'll go to festivals and industry events, and try to participate and engage and learn and practice, which is all good. It's always beneficial. It's always eye-opening, but it takes a toll on me emotionally. It takes a toll on my belief in my own work and my own voice, because I do tend to get crowded in by other people's sort of opinions and their needs and their sort of metrics for success. And and again, it's like, everyone is completely different. Some people are completely motivated or inspired by that, or can work within that super easily. But yeah, it is hard to explain, what your vision is before you've worked it out through the process of your craft, And I think, like, I don't know, film is pretty hard in that way because it requires so much money. It's a ridiculously cumbersome, technologically heavy, massive crews. Like, it's a really heavy, cumbersome art form. And when it's done well, it's brilliant. But otherwise, it can be really tricky. So if you want to do it a certain way, you do have to convince a lot of people to support you, like financially or in so many other ways, which is why I just kind of love my favorite kind of filmmaking is just grabbing a camera and going out on my own. And it's kind of why I became a bit of a jack of all trades. It's like I can do the whole thing. Like, I can't, make massive feature blockbuster films, but I can do my version of a film, through every step of the process on my own. And that's where I get great satisfaction. Be like, I don't know, like, be so strange to ask a poet to pitch their poem before they write their poetry, like,
Yeah.
so it is strange in
it's
certain
so weird.
industries. Like, I guess music is, and because it is an industry, music's such an industry, film is such an industry, it's that industry part of it that can get confusing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do you keep making art, do you think?
It's the only skill I've acquired. I guess I could learn something else, but like, yeah, I still use Final Cut Pro, so I don't want to learn anything new. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because I can. It's a wonderful life. And I do, my father, I come by it. Like, I didn't have to fight too hard to be an artist. My dad was an artist, and it's not like he said I had to be, certainly. But
You had that example.
I had that example, exactly. I had the example very close at hand of someone who, like, fiercely defended his right to be an artist, and was very cognizant of the expectations and pressures that the world can put on you, and he fought to defy those, and not all, sometimes not to his own benefit, but that was like a really big drive of his. So I guess whether I knew that or not as a child, I'm sure that filtered in via osmosis. Yeah.
The short film that you made about him a few years ago was lovely. Very enigmatic character. Why did you want to make that film?
Well, I mean, specifically, short answer is that he had an exhibition coming up, a solo exhibition at the Confederation Art Gallery. So I wanted to make something that would sort of promote that exhibition called A Haunted Land. That was, I guess, 2021. Yeah. So that's like specifically why I made that particular film. But also over the years, like as a documentary filmmaker with, like, as you say, an enigmatic character as a parent, I've just been gathering footage of him over the years. So eventually, and I'm starting to feel motivated again, I do want to, go back into all those archives and make something bigger and more expansive. It's a bit tricky because humans are complicated, and if you're going to be real, you can't just paint the good side necessarily. And when it's your own parent, then there's sort of ethical, personal questions about, how much do you want to expose? And if it's posthumous, like, you don't necessarily have that person's permission to talk about certain things. So that's sort of what I've been grappling with, the ethics of that, and questioning myself of how, because I think for a film to be good, that's a portrait of someone, it's got to be a complicated portrait and not shy away.
Show all the sides.
Yeah, exactly. So, but if I can get my head around that, I would love to do a longer film, because I have years and years of bizarre and hilarious footage with my father.
And what a gift to have that.
Yeah. Absolutely. I have not a great memory, and I'm not sure which started first. Was it that I started recording everything and therefore just didn't need to use my memory, or I didn't have a great memory and so I started recording everything? But I am glad to have countless photos and hours of video of all aspects of my life.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel like there's a real gap. We didn't do I don't think there was a video camera in our house at all when I was growing up. So we don't really have any video footage. We do have some photos, which are nice. But photos are different, I think, because sometimes I see photos and I think I remember that time, but then it turns out I wasn't there at all. I just remember the photo.
Yeah.
I feel like film is different in that way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's strange, though. It definitely is one tiny little window into a time, and then when you capture it, like whether it's a photo or even video, and then you rewatch it or look at that photo again and again, it kind of like hardens and solidifies that one perspective, when really the experience was so much more sort of multiple, I guess. So
yeah.
Yeah.
How can the listeners of this podcast see your work and support you in the future?
Well, if you happen to be related to or best friends with any major funders to support
Money.
me, you could drop my name at the next dinner party. No, just kidding. So I have a website, and it's the name of my production company, 1000flowers.tv. So most of my work is there. If you got 20 minutes to spare on the internet, you can watch a short film.
Lovely. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
I wondered what would be the worth of my words in the world. If I write them and then recite them, are they worth being heard? Just because I like them, does that mean that I should mic them and see what might unfurl? And I think of the significance of my opinions here. Is it significant to be giving them? Does anybody care? Just because I'm into this, does that mean that I should live like it? And really, do I dare? Art, I want you. Art, you make it pretty hard not to. And my heart is trying hard here to follow you, but I can't always tell if I ought to. So I pondered the point of my art in this life. If I make it, will someone take it and think that it's genuine? Would they be glad that I did, 'cause they got something good out of it? Would they leave me and be any more inspired? And I question the outcome of the outpouring of myself. If I tell everyone my stories, would this keep me healthy and well? Would it give me purpose into this world, some sort of service? Is it worth it? How could I tell? Art, I want you. Art, you make it pretty hard not to. And my heart is trying hard here to follow you, but I can't always tell if I ought to.